We met in a support group for women rebuilding after divorce. We were the only ones who didn't just cry, we plotted. We became business partners, co-founders of a wellness retreat for women like us. For 5 years, we were sisters. We shared a bank account, a vision, even a small apartment when money was tight. Then the investor came. A 7-figure offer to buy us out. I wanted to hold, to grow. She wanted to sell, to cash in. The disagreement turned cold, then vicious. She used my deepest insecurities, the ones she'd helped me heal, as weapons. The betrayal wasn't just professional. It was a soul theft. Hello. Welcome to Hurt Stories. My name is Anya, and for 5 years, my closest friend in the world was a woman named Mara. I want to tell you how she became the architect of the most exquisite personal and professional ruin I have ever known, and how, from the ashes of that alliance, I learned the most brutal and necessary lesson about trust, identity, and the quiet power of walking away. We met in a sterile community center room on a Tuesday night. The fluorescent lights hummed a dirge. It was a divorce recovery group. Most of the women there were shells, speaking in whispers about betrayal and custody battles. But in the corner, sitting with a straight back and a notebook open not to doodle, but to what looked like a business plan, was Mara. Our eyes met across the circle, and it wasn't sympathy I saw. It was recognition, a spark of pure, undiluted ambition. We were the only 2 people in that room who weren't just mourning an ending, but secretly, fiercely, plotting a beginning. After the group, we went for coffee. We talked for 4 hours. We didn't just share our divorce stories, we deconstructed them like case studies. We identified the patterns of financial control, emotional neglect, the slow erosion of self. And we asked a revolutionary question. What if the healing wasn't just about therapy, but about rebuilding tangible power? What if we created a place for women to not just cry, but to learn to build? A wellness retreat that was less about spa treatments and more about strategic planning, financial literacy, physical strength, and community. We called it the Airy, a high place for those learning to fly again. We were penniless, heart-bruised, but electric with purpose. We became symbiotic. I was the strategist, the former marketing director who could build a brand narrative out of thin air. Mara was the operator, the former event planner with a preternatural gift for logistics and making the impossible happen on a shoestring budget. We worked out of my studio apartment, surviving on ramen and a shared conviction that felt like a religion. We secured a small business loan by personally guaranteeing everything we owned, which was nothing. We found a dilapidated but beautiful old lodge in the mountains, and with our own hands and the help of a few desperate contractors we paid with promises, we began to rebuild it. Those early years were a beautiful, grueling blur. We shared a tiny bedroom in the lodge during renovations, our sleeping bags side by side. We celebrated tiny victories with cheap champagne. We held each other during the inevitable panic attacks, the fear of failure, the ghostly echoes of our past marriages whispering that we weren't enough. She knew the shape of my shame. I knew the depth of her anger. Our partnership was a fortress. We had a single joint business account. Our motto was 2 heads, 1 heart. People would meet us and say we communicated like twins, finishing each other's sentences. The Airy launched, and it worked. It resonated. We weren't just another retreat, we were a movement. We featured in magazines, our waiting list grew. We hired a small, incredible team of women. We started turning a real profit. We moved out of the shared bedroom into separate cabins on the property. We bought reliable cars. For the first time since our divorces, we felt safe, successful, and sovereign. The cracks began, as they often do, not with a bang, but with a subtle shift in frequency. The 7-figure offer arrived from a venture capital group that specialized in experiential wellness brands. They wanted to buy the Airy, scale it nationally, franchise the model. The offer was life-changing money. For me, it felt like a death sentence. The Airy wasn't a brand, it was our child. It was intimate, personal, sacred. Scaling it would sanitize the very magic we'd created, the magic born from our own specific, hard-won pain. I saw us as stewards. I wanted to grow it slowly, carefully, preserving the soul. Mara saw it differently. She saw the number. She saw an escape from ever feeling fragile again. She saw validation on a scale we'd never dreamed of. "We've built the prototype, Anya," she'd say, her eyes bright with a new, unfamiliar hunger. "Now let's let the professionals build the empire. We'll be rich. We can do anything." Our debates grew tense, then heated. We'd always argued passionately, but this was different. This was foundational. It revealed a fissure in our worldview I never knew existed. I valued meaning over magnitude. She began to value magnitude above all else. She started going to meetings with the VC group without me. She'd come back speaking their language, leveraging the IP, optimizing the customer journey, exit strategies. It was a language that felt alien and cold. I felt her pulling away, building a new alliance where our shared history was just a selling point, a compelling origin story. The breaking point was a partners' meeting that turned into an ambush. Mara arrived with a lawyer, a sleek, silent man in a suit I'd never met. She presented a new, restructured deal from the VC group. It was even more money, but with a condition. They wanted the founders to stay on for a 3-year transition. "It's perfect," Mara said, her voice smooth as polished stone. "We get the payday and we still get to run things." I read the term sheet. Buried in the legalese was a clause that would effectively neuter my creative control. My role would be reduced to a brand ambassador, while Mara, with her operational skills, would become COO of the entire new entity. It was a coup dressed as a promotion. "You negotiated this, without me." My voice was quiet, deadly calm. "I was moving things forward, Anya. You were being emotional. You're clinging to this like it's a security blanket. It's time to grow up." The word, emotional, hit like a slap. It was the word my ex-husband had used to dismiss every one of my concerns. I refused to sign. The meeting ended in a glacial silence. The war was declared. What followed was a masterclass in psychological warfare, and Mara, knowing my battlefield intimately, was its greatest general. The professional sabotage came first. She began circumventing me with our team, implying my vision was holding them back from their true potential. She'd forget to include me in client emails, then apologize sweetly, saying she assumed I was too busy with the creative side. She started a whisper campaign with our most loyal clients, suggesting I was becoming unstable, too attached, that I might be difficult to work with if the sale didn't go through. But the true brutality was personal. She weaponized my vulnerabilities. In a leadership team meeting, when I expressed concern about losing our core values, she sighed, looked at the team with a pitying smile, and said, "We all know Anya's trauma around abandonment makes her resistant to change. We need to be patient." She had taken my deepest, most private healing wound and exposed it as a professional liability. She reached out to my ex-husband, ostensibly to get his perspective on working with me in a high-stakes negotiation. He, of course, provided a glowing review of my stubbornness and emotionality. She used snippets of our late-night conversations, times I doubted myself, moments of fear I'd only ever shared with her, and repackaged them as evidence of my fundamental inability to lead a growing company. I was paralyzed. To fight back felt like violating a sacred oath. How do you wage war against someone who holds the map to every weak point in your defenses? The final blow was financial. As equal partners with a joint account, all our assets were entangled. I awoke one morning to find our business accounts frozen. A lawsuit had been filed. Mara, through her new lawyer, was alleging financial mismanagement on my part, claiming my irrational attachment to the business was jeopardizing its assets. She filed for an immediate injunction to remove me from operational control, citing the hostile work environment she herself had created. I was locked out of the Aries systems. My keycard to the property was deactivated. I stood at the gate in the rain, looking up at the lights in the lodge we had built, and I understood the true meaning of annihilation. I hired a lawyer, a fierce woman named Lena who had no patience for my heartbreak. "She's playing to win, Anya. You need to decide if you're playing to be right or to survive." Survival meant detonating the life we'd built. It meant a brutal, public legal battle that would tear the area apart in the process. Mara was betting I wouldn't have the stomach for it, that my love for the dream would outweigh my will to fight. She was wrong. The fight back was not a noble campaign. It was a grim, forensic, and deeply ugly process. With Lena's guidance, I had to become my own enemy. I audited every email, every financial record. I found the discrepancies, the unauthorized bonuses she'd started paying herself, the secret communications with the VC group that outlined a plan to push me out. I tracked down the contractor she'd promised a kickback to if he would submit a complaint about my difficult management. Most painfully, I had to sit for a deposition and listen to her lawyer articulate my insecurities as corporate failures. I had to look Mara in the eye across a conference table as she perjured herself, her gaze flat and empty, the woman I loved gone, replaced by a ruthless competitor. The legal war ended in a scorched earth settlement. There was no victor. The area was sold to a third party to pay our legal debts. The VC deal vaporized. The brand was tainted, its value gutted. Mara walked away with a fraction of the money she'd wanted. I walked away with my name legally cleared and nothing else. No company, no dream, no sister. The aftermath was a silence louder than any sound. I was free, but I was in ruins. The betrayal was so complete it felt ontological. It challenged my ability to trust my own judgment. How could I have been so blind? The healing, this time, was solitary. There was no support group. There was just the slow, agonizing work of rebuilding a self that could not be so easily dismantled. I had to accept a terrible truth. My closest ally had become my biggest enemy not because she was a monster, but because she was a human whose desires had violently outgrown our shared purpose. The person who had helped me build my strength had ultimately tried to break it, not because she hated me, but because my strength had become an obstacle to her new ambition. It took 3 years of quiet work. I started a consultancy, not building a new family business, but advising other female founders on partnership agreements, on clear boundaries, on the legal architecture of trust. I turned my greatest failure into my expertise. I built a life that was entirely my own, no shared accounts, no blurred personal and professional lines. The fortress was gone. In its place was a well-defended, sovereign island. I heard through the grapevine that Mara started another venture. It failed within 18 months. The VC world, it turns out, has little use for operators without visionaries. The lesson was not to never trust again. The lesson was to trust differently. To trust with clear eyes, with protected boundaries, with the understanding that allies are for seasons and for reasons, and that the most dangerous enemy is not the one who attacks from without, but the one who knows exactly how to dismantle you from within. My closest ally became my biggest enemy, and in doing so, she taught me the final, non-negotiable tenet of resilience. You must never hand anyone the blueprint to your own destruction, no matter how much you love them. You must always keep a copy of your soul in a safe place, under a name only you know. Because sometimes, the person you take a bullet for is the one who ends up holding the gun, and the only armor that will save you is the self you built when no one was watching. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.